in me to tell you that story accurately and impartially and in a way that really means something.
Live from London, this is BBC News. The names of the first victims of Maui's wildfires have been released ahead of Joe Biden's visit to Hawaii next week. Dozens fear dead as a boat of migrants capsizes off Cape Verde. A US prosecutor calls for Donald Trump's election interference case to be tried in March. And another casting controversy for the movie industry. Should an Israeli or Jewish actor have been picked to play the Israeli Prime Minister, Golda Meir? Hello and welcome to our viewers across the world. I'm Frankie McCamley. President Biden says he will travel to Hawaii next week to inspect the response to the deadly wildfires on the island of Maui. He's been criticised by his political opponents who've said that he's been slow to see the devastation. Now he's going to meet survivors and emergency workers. The White House says he'll visit scenes of wildfire damage and discuss the next steps in the recovery operations with officials. So far, officials have confirmed that 110 people have died in the fires, but that number is expected to rise as the search continues. Only 38% of affected areas have been searched, and just a handful of victims have been identified. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Well, let's take a look at some other stories making today's news. Prosecutors in France have charged 4 people after 6 Afghan migrants drowned in the English Channel on Saturday. The 2 Iraqis and 2 Sudanese nationals who are accused of involuntary manslaughter were detained shortly after the small boat sank. It had been carrying 65 people, most of whom were rescued by British and French authorities. A judge in Nicaragua has ordered the seizure of all assets belonging to a prestigious university run by priests. The judge has described the Central American University as a centre for terrorism organised by criminal groups. New research suggests the morning after pill stays effective at preventing pregnancies for longer if combined with a common anti-inflammatory medicine. The researchers say the combination worked in 95% of cases if taken within 3 days. They hope the results will spur further research. You're live with BBC News. Now, the family of Travis King, the US soldier confirmed to be in North Korea, has told BBC News that they have not heard from him. In an earlier statement, North Korea said the American soldier wanted to seek refuge in its territory because of poor treatment and racism he said he had experienced in the US Army. A US Defense Department spokesperson said they weren't able to verify King's comments, but his uncle says he received a text in which the soldier had indicated he was experiencing racism. Private King's family spokesperson has been talking to the BBC about the 23-year-old's detainment. Well, stay with us here on BBC News. This is BBC News, the headlines. The names of the first victims of Maui's wildfires have been released ahead of Joe Biden's visit to Hawaii next week. Dozens feared dead as a boat of migrants capsizes off Cape Verde. A US prosecutor calls for Donald Trump's election interference case to be tried in March. And another casting controversy for the movie industry. Should an Israeli or Jewish actor have played the Prime Minister Golda Meir? Welcome back with me, Frankie McCamley. Now let's get more on our main story, the devastating wildfires in Hawaii. Officials have now reopened the road to the worst hit part of the island, giving most survivors their first opportunity to assess damage and retrieve their belongings. However, people are still barred from entering the town of Lahaina, which was destroyed in the blaze. Our North America correspondent John Sudworth has been on Maui since last week and has more. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're live with BBC News. To Ukraine now, where there's been a significant development in the effort by Ukraine to continue its exports across the Black Sea, despite concerns that Russia could target cargo ships. A Hong Kong-flagged merchant vessel successfully left the Ukrainian seaport of Odessa on Wednesday and does not appear to have come under any danger. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the ship's movements, I quote, an important step. Well, with more on that, here's our correspondent in Kyiv, James Waterhouse. And you can contact me. I'm on Twitter, or X as it's known, at Frankie_Mac. Stay with us here on BBC News. Live from London, this is BBC News. Dozens of migrants are feared dead as their boat capsizes off Cape Verde. It's A-level results day, the moment thousands of students have been waiting for to find out their end-of-school examination grades. The names of the first victims of Maui's wildfires are released ahead of Joe Biden's visit to Hawaii next week. And dates for Donald Trump's first court appearance and trial are proposed following accusations that he interfered with the last presidential election in Georgia. Hello, a very warm welcome to you. I'm Frankie McCamley. More than 60 people are feared dead after a boat carrying migrants was found off Cape Verde in West Africa. 38 people, including children, have been rescued. It's thought they're aiming to travel to Europe via the Spanish Canary Islands. The boat was found drifting about 300 kilometres from Cape Verde, and those on board are thought to have come from Senegal. Pictures show boats arriving back in the port on the island of Sal, with survivors being helped to shore, some on stretchers. Officials in Senegal say they're making arrangements to bring the survivors home. Now, they have been giving more details about the rescue. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Well, let's look at some other stories making the news. Government sources report that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been invited to visit the UK. Number 10 said they would confirm the Prime Minister's engagements in the usual way, with nothing in the diary yet. It would be the first since the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. The family of a pregnant woman killed by a speeding driver have welcomed a decision to have his 12-year prison sentence reviewed by the Court of Appeal. Frankie Jules Howe, died along with her unborn daughter when Adil Iqbal crashed into her car shortly after he'd filmed himself driving at 123 miles an hour. And an MP has told a public meeting he will pursue a law granting better protection for heritage venues in the name of a pub which was demolished after a fire. You're live with BBC News. Now let's get more on our top story. More than 60 people are feared to have died after a boat carrying migrants was found off Cape Verde in West Africa. 38 people, including children, have been rescued. It's thought they're aiming to travel to Europe via the Spanish Canary Islands. The boat was found drifting around 300 kilometres from Cape Verde. Those on board are thought to have come from Senegal. Well, let's talk now to our reporter Azizat Olaoluwa. She is following developments from Nigeria. And Azizat, first of all, tell me what authorities are saying. A reminder of our breaking news. Sir Michael Parkinson, the veteran broadcaster, considered the king of British chat show hosts, has died aged 88, his family has told the BBC. A statement from Sir Michael's family said, after a brief illness, Sir Michael Parkinson passed away peacefully at his home last night in the company of his family. The family requests that they are given privacy and time to grieve. The chat show host interviewed some of Hollywood's biggest names throughout his illustrious career, with names such as Jimmy Cagney, Fred Astaire, Lauren Bacall and Ingrid Bergman in the list. Now, Sir Michael became a familiar face both on the BBC and ITV because of his intimate celebrity interviews, most notably the BBC show Parkinson. Parkinson first aired on the BBC on June the 19th, 1971. He enjoyed a successful run until 1982. In 1998, the chat show was revived on the BBC and proved an instant hit. During the hundreds of episodes of his talk show, he also interviewed stars including David Bowie, John Lennon and Celine Dion. Headline-making interviews throughout his career included those with actress Dame Helen Mirren and the US star Meg Ryan. He famously introduced stage and screen star Dame Helen as the sex queen of Royal Shakespeare Company during their 1975 chat show, and asked her if equipment hindered her being recognised as a serious actress. Stay with us here on BBC News. This is BBC News, the headlines. Tributes are being paid to the broadcasting legend Sir Michael Parkinson, who has died at the age of 88. It's A-levels results day, the moment thousands of students have been waiting for to find out their examination grades. But others will be disappointed and face tough decisions, including applying to other universities, colleges, or going through clearing. A warm welcome to the programme. Let's start with the breaking news. In the past half an hour, the Talk TV show host and journalist Sir Michael Parkinson has died after a brief illness. In a statement, his family say he passed away peacefully at home last night. He was aged 88. In the last few minutes, the BBC Director General, Tim Davie, has paid tribute to Sir Michael, calling him the king of the chat show. David Silito looks back at his life. And we'll bring you more tributes to Michael Parkinson in the coming hours. More now on A-level results day. It's the moment thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland find out their results of their examinations. Now, students' results will determine whether they'll go to university or an apprenticeship or a training course even. This year, the proportion of top A or A-star grade results is down after a rise following the COVID pandemic. A reminder of our breaking news. Sir Michael Parkinson, the veteran broadcaster considered the king of British chat show hosts, has died aged 88. His family has told the BBC. A statement from Sir Michael's family said after a brief illness, Sir Michael Parkinson passed away peacefully at home last night in the company of his family. The family requests that they are given privacy and time to grieve. The chat show host interviewed some of Hollywood's biggest names throughout his illustrious career, with names such as Jimmy Cagney, Fred Astaire and Lauren Bacall and Ingrid Bergman on the list. Sir Michael became a familiar face on both the BBC and ITV because of his intimate celebrity interviews, most notably on the BBC show Parkinson. That first aired on the BBC on June the 19th, 1971 and enjoyed a successful run until 1982. And the chat show was revived and proved an instant hit. You're watching BBC News. Live from London, this is BBC News. Tributes are paid to the chat show legend Sir Michael Parkinson, who has died aged 88. More than 60 migrants are feared dead after their boat is found drifting off Cape Verde in West Africa. A-level results day arrives the moment thousands of students find out their examination grades in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And the names of the first victims of Maui's wildfires have been released ahead of Joe Biden's visit to Hawaii next week. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Frankie McCamley. Now we start here in the UK, where tributes have been paid to the TV talk show host and journalist Sir Michael Parkinson. In a statement, his family said he died peacefully at home. He was 88. Sir Michael interviewed hundreds of the world's top stars of entertainment and sport, including Muhammad Ali, Orson Welles and Fred Astaire. The BBC Director General Tim Davie called him the king of the chat show. David Sillito looks back at his life. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Well, let's look at some other stories making the news today. Singapore police have seized about $700 million, including luxury homes, cars and watches, in one of its biggest anti-money laundering probes. Police arrested 10 people in the operation, all of whom held foreign passports. Raids of this size are rare in Singapore, which has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Military chiefs from the West African regional bloc ECOWAS are meeting in Ghana to discuss the deployment of a standby force for possible military intervention in Niger. At least 11 of the bloc's 15 member states back a military deployment to reinstate the democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum after diplomatic efforts failed to yield any positive result. And the United States has expressed concern over the threat of worsening violence in Mali, citing attacks on UN peacekeepers. On Monday, the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali said it had been forced to withdraw earlier than usual. You're live with BBC News. Well, here it is, A-level results day, the moment thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland find out the results of their examinations. Students' results will determine whether they'll go to university, an apprenticeship or a training course. This year, results are expected to be down after a rise following the COVID pandemic. Well, our reporter Nikki Schiller has been at a college in Leeds all morning for us. And Nikki, what are students saying where you are? It's such a nervous day for them, isn't it? I don't know if you remember, but I remember that day and being mildly disappointed, to say the least. And just before we go, more on our top story here in the UK as tributes are being paid to the TV talk show host and journalist Sir Michael Parkinson. He died aged 88. In a statement, his family said he died peacefully at home. Sir Michael interviewed hundreds of the world's top stars of entertainment and sport. You're watching BBC News.
Spain's acting Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez edges closer to forming a government 3 weeks after the snap election. And as London prepares to become the world's largest clean air zone, we look at how a similar approach is paying off in Birmingham. Hello there, welcome to World Business Report with me, Marc Ashdown. Now, just 3 weeks after Spain's inconclusive snap election, the party's Socialist Party, led by acting Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, is a step closer to forming a government. As Madrid's parliament reconvenes today, the Socialists need support from the Catalan Nationalist Party, Junts, in order to form a coalition. Well, there does now appear to be an agreement, and Parliament has in the past hour chosen a new speaker, the first step towards forming a government. There have been concerns about this political instability and the effect it might have on Spain's economy, which continues to struggle with high unemployment. Well, let's cross live now to David Latona, who's a Reuters journalist based in Madrid. David, thanks so much for your time. So, first step here, welcome news, but a long way to go. What happens now? Well, that's it from me. All your business headlines. Thank you very much for watching. This is BBC News.
Hello there, this is your update from the BBC Sports Centre. The build-up is on for England's first Football World Cup final since 1966, after the Lionesses sealed their spot in Sunday's showpiece event by knocking out Australia. It's the first time England's women have reached this stage of the competition, and the reaction to that victory has caused some envy and respect across the host nation. Jane Dougal reports. And that is all the sport from us for now. Get all the latest on the website. We'll see you soon.
Hello and welcome back with me, Frankie McCamley. Now here it is A-level results day, the moment thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland find out the results of their examinations. Students' results will determine whether they'll go to university, onto an apprenticeship or a training course. This year, the percentage of students getting the top A and A-star grades is down after a rise following the COVID pandemic. Earlier, we heard from the Education Secretary Gillian Keegan, who explained how this year's A-levels have been graded fairly, despite students having missed out on taking GCSEs because of the pandemic. Well, now it's time for a look at the weather with Carol.
Hello again. If you have an allergy to wheat pollen, today's levels across England and also Wales are high.